Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into Executive Order 14275.
That's the one titled Restoring Common Sense to Federal Procurement, right? Issued mid-April 2025.
Exactly. And our mission here is, well, to help you get up to speed quickly on what this actually means, especially for government contracting.
Sounds good. And we're mainly drawing from that National Law Review piece from April 17th.
That's our main source, yeah. A legal analysis. So to really get this, we need to look back a bit, don't we?
We do. You kind of have to understand the context. This EO 14275, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It follows Executive Order 14192.
Unleashing prosperity through deregulation. That was January 31st, 2025.
Right. And that one talked about the ever-expanding morass of complicated federal regulation. Big words, but basically saying there are too many rules.
And it set that ambitious goal, didn't it? For every new regulation, find 10 old ones to get rid of.
Yeah, a 10-to-1 ratio. So these 14192 was broad, like government-wide deregulation.
But this new one, 14275, it zooms right in on government contracting. It's targeting the rules there specifically.
Exactly. It's a focused effort. And it seems like it was influenced by some prior work, too.
Yeah, the order itself mentions Senator Wicker's 2024 report, Restoring Freedom's Forge, something about DoD procurement reforms.
And also the Section 809 panels report from back in 2019. That one was already pushing for, streamlining acquisition rules, making them more consistent.
So it's like these ideas have been floating around and now they're being acted on. Okay, so let's boil it down. What is the absolute core policy of EO 14275?
The heart of it, based on the order and the analysis, is this. The main rule book, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR, should only contain rules that are strictly required by law, by statute, or that are absolutely essential for, quote, sound procurement. Anything else. The idea is to remove it. Cut the fat, basically.
Okay, cutting the fat from the FAR. The article mentions it's, what, over 2,000 pages? That's huge.
It is. It's a beast.
So who gets the job of actually doing this trimming? Who's responsible for reforming the FAR?
Well, the main responsibility falls to the FAR Council. This is the group Congress actually set up way back to create and maintain the FAR in the first place.
And who's on this council?
It's made up of, let's see, the Administrator for Federal Procurement Policy, the Secretary of Defense, the head of NASA, and the head of the General Services Administration, the GSA. It's all laid out in the law.
High level, folks. But the EO, it seems to single out one person for a key role.
It does, yeah. The Administrator of the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, or OFPP, they're tasked specifically with coordinating this whole effort.
Coordinating with who?
With the rest of the FR Council, obviously, but also with all the heads of the different government agencies and their top acquisition officials, making sure everyone's on the same page about making the FR lean and mean.
And it sounds like the agencies themselves have homework to do too, right? They can't just wait for the FR Council.
Absolutely not. Each agency has to pick a senior acquisition official who will be their point person.
To do what exactly?
To work directly with the OFPP administrator and the FR Council on the main FAR reforms, and to make sure their own agency's extra rules, the supplemental regulations, also get streamlined to match this new philosophy.
Okay, so we know who's doing the work. What about when? This sounds like a big job. Is there a deadline?
There is, and it's actually, well, pretty soon. The deadline to amend the FAR is October 13th, 2025.
October 13th. That's just 180 days from when the order came out in April. Wow.
Yeah, it's an aggressive timeline for potentially major regulatory surgery.
And isn't there something else happening even sooner? Something from OMB?
Yes, good point. The Director of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, working with the OFPP administrator, they have to issue a memo to all the agencies.
A memo about what?
Basically guidance, how to actually implement this executive order, how to approach the changes to the FAR and the agency supplements consistently across the government.
And when is that memo due?
By May 5th, 2025. That was only 20 days after the EAO was signed. So that should be out or imminent.
Okay, so for you listen, especially if you're in the contracting world, that OMB memo is probably the next big thing to watch out for. It should give more details.
Exactly. It'll likely flesh out the how-to of this whole streamlining push.
Right.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Right. Now let's talk substance. What kind of changes might we actually see? The article paints this picture of the FAR being excessive, overcomplicated, leading to onerous bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's the justification given in the EO itself. So the clear goal is reduction. Reducing the sheer size, the number of pages, the scope of the rules.
Both in the main FAR and in those agency-specific add-ons.
Correct. The guiding principle is, if it's not required by law or truly essential for good procurement practice, It's potentially on the chopping block.
And the article mentioned that Section 809 panel report again, suggesting it might give us clues about what gets cut or changed.
It's a strong possibility, yeah. That panel had a lot of ideas back in 2019. Things like using commercial buying practices more often, simplifying how contractors are chosen.
Cutting down the paperwork, the red tape.
Pretty much. Empowering the acquisition workforce by getting rid of unnecessary hurdles. So it seems very likely that the OFPP administrator and the FER council will be looking closely at those kinds of recommendations.
Okay, that makes sense. But the article also flags a potential wrinkle, a conflict maybe, with another recent executive order, EO 14222.
Ah, yes. That's an interesting point they raise. There does seem to be a bit of tension there.
How so? What does EO 14222 do that might clash with this simplification goal?
Well, EO 14222, that one requires setting up a whole new public database. And this database has to track every single payment the government makes under a contract.
Every single one, regardless of size.
Apparently so. And not just track the payment, but include a written justification for it, for every payment.
Huh. So EO 14275 is saying simplify, reduce bureaucracy, but EO 14222 is adding a new, potentially quite detailed tracking and justification requirement.
Exactly. That sounds like it could increase administrative work for agencies and maybe contractors, not decrease it. It raises a fair question. How do these two directives fit together?
Yeah, how do you reconcile pushing for less burden while adding a mandate for potentially very granular payment justification? It highlights the complexity, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Implementing these kinds of broad changes across the entire federal government is never simple. There are always interactions and potential conflicts to sort out.
So the bottom line for you, the listener, is that really significant changes are coming to the rules of the road for government contracting. Paying attention to the details of the FIR amendments when they come out is going to be crucial.
Absolutely paramount. If you're involved in this space, you need to understand what's changing and get ready for it.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main points for you. We've got Executive Order 14275, pushing hard for deregulation in federal procurement.
The main target is the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR. The goal is to simplify it, shrink it, cut out non-essential rules.
And they've set a deadline for this, October 2025, so things are moving relatively fast.
And this whole effort, it builds on earlier deregulation pushes and seems influenced by past recommendations aimed at efficiency, like from Senator Wicker and the Section 809 panel. It signals a real shift.
So for you listening, especially if government contracts are your world, or even if you just follow government policy, these are definitely developments worth tracking closely.
Understanding these changes could really impact how business is done with the government going forward.
Which brings us to maybe a final thought for you to chew on. With all this focus on simplification, on removing anything not essential to sound procurement.
How exactly is that phrase, essential to sound procurement, going to be interpreted in practice? Who decides what's essential?
Right. And could there be unintended consequences? When you make significant changes to a system this complex, what ripple effects might we see down the line?
Definitely something to think about as this all unfolds over the next few months. It's going to be an interesting period to watch.